Okay folks, so I'm going to start this video with a trigger warning. This video once again will offend a lot of people, especially if you're Chinese or a Chinese woman. So I'm going to discuss the topic of why Chinese women in rural areas, in these counties and these villages, in small towns, why almost all of them are mad ugly. I'm not talking about below average. Like if you're a 3 or 4 out of 10, you still have a shot. I'm talking about, the vast majority of women in these areas, they're in the ranges of 1s and 2s. Some of these women, I'm sorry to say, they're barely a 1. You're probably looking at a 0.5 out of 10. This is actually very shocking to me because it wasn't always like this, right? When I was growing up in China, I grew up in a tiny little subdivision of roughly 30,000 people. Nowadays, there's less. There's probably 15 or 20,000 people left. So the distribution of attractive women back in the day was probably a lot more even when you're comparing the cities to the countryside. Now there's a huge shift where basically what's happening in China is that all the attractive women, they have all moved into the mega cities, and I'll tell you guys why. So last December I returned to my grandmother's hometown, her birthplace, and yes, I did cover this in a previous video, so I'll show you guys on the map. So my grandmother, she was born in this county. This is called the Quandian Manchurian Autonomous County. And even though, yes, the majority of the population in this county, they're Manchurian, but my grandmother, she's Han Chinese, just like myself. So back in the day, I would say the population in the early 2000s, it probably peaked at around 450,000 people. But however, fast forward to 2025, so the population of the county has probably dropped to something like 300,000. So basically a third of the population has left the area, and the vast majority of the people that has left the area, basically they're all young people. All the young people are leaving, and also if there's any young people that's left in the area, they're all like mad ugly. That was a huge shock to me when I returned last December as I was walking around the streets in my grandmother's hometown, because I did spend a few years in that county as well, as a kid myself, right? I didn't think the issue was this bad, but as soon as I returned, I was just walking around the streets, and I realized all the men and women, they're so freaking ugly. And I'm really sorry to say, because I want to tell you guys why this is happening. Something has happened in the past 10-15 years, right? If you're wondering why dating is so tough, if you're wondering why the nuclear family is falling apart, why there's so many divorces, and what has happened to these rural areas. So I have a cousin, so by the way, she's living in Canada for the last 2 years now. I haven't seen her in a really long time. She was also born in that rural county. When I was growing up, I would say honestly, my cousin, she's probably mid, right? She's average, nothing special, but I definitely don't think she would fall into the categories of being mad ugly, of being a 1 or 2. I don't think she's a 3 or 4, right? But I've been looking at just her recent photos, right? And honestly, she looks a lot better than mid. I have to say she's way above average, which has been leaving me with some doubts, because I honestly think that in the past 5-6 years, at some point she probably got plastic surgery, right? By the way, this is also the one of the really dangerous areas about dating in the 21st century, right? On top of all these beauty filters, these de-aging filters, all these insane makeups, right? You have AI, now you also have to deal with plastic surgery. It's possible she got plastic surgery, and the reason why she got plastic surgery is because that she basically became a Wang Hong. What is a Wang Hong? So basically she started streaming online, and in these chat rooms, by the way, this is a 100% legal. It's actually state sponsored by the Chinese Communist Party, so there are probably millions of Chinese girls across China. They're making insane amount of money on these online streaming platforms. I don't know what you would call this. It's basically like a soft-core version of OnlyFans, right? Obviously, there's no nudity, so what you're most likely to see is that when you enter these online chat rooms, when she's doing live streaming, usually she's playing like a little electric piano, and she's saying that, hey, what's up guys? So I'll be playing a song for you guys today, and if you guys really like my performance, please leave a like, leave me a comment, send me some gifts. So for example, you can start with something as little as 1 or 2 yuan, which is absolutely nothing, right? You can send her a bunch of roses, you can send her some lilies, and if you really like this girl, you can send her things like these. Obviously these are fake, right? I'm talking about, you can send her like sports cars, you can send her private planes, you can send her mansions, you can send her boats and stuff like that, right? And some of these women, they can make more than doctors or engineers or even professional athletes. I think it's reported that some of these really popular Chinese streaming girls, they can make something like $1 million or 2 million US dollars per month. So my cousin, by the way, she's 29 now. She's been doing this, I think she was 18. So that is the minimum age requirement before you can actually start streaming. So it's basically she's been doing this for 11 years now. I've been told, right, basically I haven't seen her in many years. This is what I've been told by her mom. She can make as much as 100,000 yuan per month. So 100,000 yuan per month, that is $14,000 USD per month. Even by American standards, that is an insane amount of money. And just think about, if you're a person living in China, right? So 100,000 yuan per month, the average wage of a Chinese woman, if you have an average income job in China, you're probably looking at 5,000 yuan per month, right? 100,000 yuan per month, that is an unimaginable amount of wealth for someone that's living in China. By the way, what's so insane about all of this is that, the reason why the Chinese Communist Party allows something like this is because the company that offers these platforms for these young Chinese girls, they take away roughly half of the revenue. Then who knows, maybe, from the half of the revenue, they take away maybe another a quarter of that goes to the Chinese government as a form of taxes. And I'm sorry to say, the reason why so many of modern women, they're becoming so delusional, right? They think they can all get with the 6'3" chats that's making $250,000 a year. Well, it's because all of these online simps, they're constantly complimenting them. They're constantly telling them how beautiful they are. Even some of these women who are actually mid in their real life, some of these women who are actually 3s and 4s, and they're constantly sending them all these gifts. They're saying that, oh my God, I love you so much. Here's 200 yuan, I just send you a sports car. Oh, here's 500 yuan, I just bought you a mansion, a fake BS, a digital mansion online. And honestly, I don't know why these men are so obsessed with this. Like what do you actually get out of this? It's just sometimes it's the fault of both modern men and modern women. So this is the state of our society in 2025. All of that aside, right, why do I want to talk about this, right? So my cousin, right, I would say she's probably mid at this point. I don't know, maybe she got plastic surgery, so she's probably above average. But she was born in that county where I said almost everybody is basically 1s and 2s, right? Almost everybody is mad ugly. But here's the thing, right? As soon as she has made some money, as soon as she's found some online fame, right? So for a lot of these Chinese girls, once they reach a certain stage, right? Let's say if they can make 3,000 or 4,000 yuan a month, or sometimes on average live stream they can average 1,000 viewers per night, right? As soon as they get noticed, these agencies they will contact them. So what happens? Obviously, she was contacted about one of these agencies, and she was sent to a massive mega city to one of those boot camps. If you guys are wondering, are those videos real or fake? Where you see these basically factories that's pumping out thousands of these young Chinese girls. Sometimes, let's say if it's 7 p.m. on a Friday night, right? All the lights, all the cameras turn on, they all start streaming. Yes, that's 100% real. So actually, they paid for her flight, and she was flown to the city of Hangzhou. If you're wondering where Hangzhou is, it's just beside Shanghai. So Hangzhou is a massive tier 1 mega city. So this is becoming an extremely popular trend in China. So sometimes what happens, in a small village of 100,000 people or 50,000 people, sometimes there's not a lot of ways to make money. And sometimes once in a while you get a girl that's fairly attractive, that's a 6 or 7 or 8, sometimes even a 9 or 10, right? As soon as they get noticed online, right, they will get contacted by one of these agencies. And all of these boot camps for all these female streamers, they're all based in big cities. Basically, these companies, they will contact these girls. They're saying that here's your first class ticket, you're going to come with us, you're going to join our camp, and we're going to make you extremely wealthy. And that's exactly what happened to my cousin. That's why she has so much money now. That's why she can afford to move to Canada now. It's because she was noticed online. This is a massive issue, right? I did mention before, right? If you're a rural conservative Chinese guy, right, and if you want to look for a girlfriend, if you want to get married, if you want to have children, this is going to be a massive struggle for you, because all the young, all the beautiful, all the attractive women, they have all left. It's because with the rise of internet, I've been talking about this for the past 10, 15, 20 videos now. This is going to be the final filter for humanity, because if you're a Chinese guy that wants to stay in the countryside, if you want to get married, if you want to have children, it's going to be impossible. There's no attractive woman for you. You can't even find anybody that's mid. You're only looking at 1s and 2s. At the best, you might find a 3 or 4. And so in order for you to find a date, in order for you to find a girlfriend, in order for you to get married, and if you want to have children, you have to move to the big city. And what happens when you move to the big city, right? Things get extremely expensive. And what also happens when you move to the big city, right? You have to compete with the giga chats. You have to compete with the guys who are the top 1% of income earners. You have to compete with CEOs. You got to compete with neurosurgeons. You got to compete with lawyers. You have to compete with professional athletes. So this becomes becomes a massive struggle. And this is why, you know, this issue is not just happening in China, it's also happening in South Korea, it's also happening in Japan, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in America. Basically any developed nation, right? This is going to be the final filter, this is going to be the final frontier for humanity. Once, you know, humanity reaches a certain stage, right, they will no longer be able to move forward anymore. And at this point, I do honestly think that humanity has already peaked, because you know, it's very evident, right? Just looking at worldwide, look at the rampant divorces, the rise of single mother homes, the fall of the nuclear family, the rise of feminism. Everything has been progressing backwards. And if you're wondering why I haven't contacted my cousin, she's living in Canada, right, for 2 years, and she's super wealthy, right? Here's the thing, right? I only found out about my cousin after I returned to her birthplace last December. Even though she's been living in Canada for the past 2 years, she has never ever contacted me. You know, and obviously, I think the reason is pretty obvious, right? She thinks that, you know, I'm a big shot now. You know, I have all these followers, I have all these male simps, right? And I have everything going for myself. I got myself a mansion, I got myself a nice car, I'm wearing nice clothes, and why the hell do I want to talk to my cousin who is 100% broke? This is the way the woman's brain is wired, right? It's very different. When a man makes a lot of money, he's going to think that, oh, now I can finally afford to find myself a girlfriend, I can finally afford to get married, I can finally afford to have children. But what happens when a woman makes a lot of money, she's going to think that, you know what, I am finally independent from man. And this is why, you know, we have the collapsing birth rate worldwide. It's because women are more financially independent than ever before. And I'm sorry to say, I honestly don't think there's actually going to be a solution for this. And basically, everything is going to be so much tougher for the next generation, especially for young men, because with the rise of internet, with the rise of these streaming services, right, with the rise of social media, right, and any average girl, right, as soon as they open up their phone screen, they have access to these top tier, to these top 5%, top 3%, top 1% men. So when these girls in real life, when they see you know, an average guy who's actually mid, they will never ever even look at them. And this is a extremely important topic, and I will keep coming back to this topic. I want to thank you guys so much for staying all the way until the end, and see you guys next video.
Everybody knows that I'm breaking down. Everybody knows I ain't faking now. Everybody knows my heart's vacant now.